how perfect, right? Thank you, universe, for just allowing us to practice some resilience. We'll keep trying. You know, the secret to success is just getting up one more time than you fall down. So here we are, getting up one more time. But I will say that if we do get stuck again, it might be wise to reschedule it and do it again another time. If I'm kicked off, friends, I apologize, and we'll reschedule it and let you know when. But for now, let's act as if we're going to move forward. So once again, please do take out your pen and your paper, and I want you to think about what made you want to come today, what made you want to show up to a program on resilience. What was it? What part of you? Think about that. Why? Why did you show it up? And just write that down, a sentence of it. And thank that impulse for helping you to show up. And thank yourself for following that impulse, which is where so much of, I mean, that's what resilience is, right? I think is to follow what is the next thing, that's what is the next step to do. I thought we'd start then with a little poem by Rumi that I turned into a song. It's something that I've carried with me and sung to myself many, many, many times over the years. This is a version by Danny Ladinsky, and it goes like this. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? It felt the encouragement of life. It felt the encouragement of light against its being. Otherwise, we all remain too frightened. How did the rose ever open its heart and give to the world all its beauty? I love this this little song poem, especially for this talk about resilience, about this time actually in particular too, when a lot of us are faced with challenge, are faced with fear, are faced with maybe not feeling like it's a great safe time to open up. And maybe you're experiencing that too. And yet there is this encouragement of light that is encouraging all of us to show up and to share ourselves, to show up vulnerably. And so that's a little bit of what we're going to do today is have lots of poems. I'll recite lots of poems that explore this and give you lots of ideas for your own writing and ways to think about it. And we won't be doing that writing today, but we will have a chance to, hopefully in the future, you can watch this video again. You can skip the whole part where my internet doesn't work and just jump right into the parts where we read poems and talk about them and do some writing. So I like to do what are called 3 writes. And in my mind, a 3 write is when I take 3 questions, the 3 things I'm interested in, and I give myself 3 minutes to write on each of these. And today we're just going to take 1 minute on each of them. And I'll just ask you the question, and hopefully you have your pen and paper right there. You can write your answers down. If you want to go back to them later, of course, I think that's a good idea. And we'll start with this one. Where do you feel shut down? Keep writing. Where do you feel shut down? And finish that sentence. Where do you feel sanctuary? Where are you finding sanctuary? And if you can, keep writing. Just push yourself to say a little bit more about that. And then the last question is, what do you need to know? And go ahead and finish that. And like I said, you can go back to these questions later and fill them out a little bit more, but what I like about doing 3 writes, usually they're a little bit longer, but what I like about it is it just kind of gets things just stirred up just a little bit. And I feel like resilience has a lot to do with these questions that we just asked. And so, by the way, does poetry. Really, I think that poetry and resilience both are asking us to really connect to where we are, be really present and really available to the world in this moment, but also to imagine what is possible and to stand equally in that world. And poetry is so good at this, at standing in 2 worlds at once, you know, in the world of fear and beauty, in the world of disappointment and connection. Poetry at all times is building these bridges between these different worlds, and also, of course, between the outside world, all the things that we're experiencing, and the inside world where we feel. So the outside world of what's happening, certainly with COVID and with a lot of the fears that are happening around with that inside here. So poetry builds these bridges. And I think as I read some of these poems that I've chosen for us about resilience, we'll get a little sense of what that's all about. So the first one I'm going to share with you is by one of my favorite poets, Jane Hirshfield. She studied Zen. She lives in California now, and her new book, Ledger, is just phenomenal. This particular poem, though, came from 1994, her book, The October Palace, and this poem is called The Weighing. The heart's reasons seen clearly, even the hardest will carry its whip marks and sadness, and must be forgiven. As the drought-starved eland forgives the drought-starved lion who finally takes her, enters willingly then the life she cannot refuse, and is lion, is fed, and does not remember the other. So few grains of happiness measured against all the dark, and still the scales balance. The world asks of us only the strength to live, and then it asks more, and we give it. That's The Weighing by Jane Hirshfield. And I started out with this poem for a couple of reasons. Number one, because of that ending. Oh my goodness. I mean, perhaps you have felt this too, that the world asks everything it can of you and asks for you to bring your strongest self, and you give it, and you feel as if you've just gone all the way to what you're capable of. And then, as Jane says, it asks more, and we give it. So thinking about that, and then also thinking about what she said right before that. So few grains of happiness measured against the dark, and still the scales balance. If you think about how sometimes it feels like right now what's happening in the world, all these changes that we're being asked to accommodate, all the uncertainties, all of that. And sometimes I think, oh my gosh, I can't take another second of this. And I think maybe I've gone over some edge. And then some small beauty will happen, something, and I'll think, oh my goodness. And it just pulls me away from that desperation. It pulls me away from that edge. This is what poems have to offer us, really, I think, is the ability to hold all of this at once, right? Poems have inherent in them, I think, a spaciousness. They allow us to, at the very same time, hold what seem to be things that couldn't possibly be held at the same time. So here's a prompt for you to write down and think about later. What is the world asking of you right now? Jane says, the world asks of us only the strength we have. What is the world asking for from you? Is it asking for vulnerability? Is it asking for courage? Is it asking for resilience? What is the world asking from you? And you could even fill in the blank, if you don't know how to start this poem, and you don't even have to write a poem. We don't even have to call it a poem. We could just call it a list. Say, the world is asking me to, and then fill in that blank. The world is asking me to. And then my idea about how to take that further is then to have a poem that allows you to converse with the world. So if the world is asking you to be more vulnerable, the world asked me to be more vulnerable. Have a conversation with it. Ask the world a question or tell it how you feel about that. No, world, I don't have it in me. I don't have that. And let the world and you have a conversation about this. I was thinking I might give you an example of that. It's a little bit different, but this is a poem in which AR Ammons, one of my favorite American writers, has a conversation with a mountain, and he's talking to it about I suppose, impatience or being too late for something. It's a poem called Eyesight. And then what I'm hoping is that you'll just listen for how does Ammons write a poem in which he has this conversation with the world. It was May before my attention turned to spring. My word, I said to the mountain, I missed it. Spring came and went before I got right to see. Oh, don't worry, said the mountain. Try the later northern slopes, or if you can climb, climb into spring, but said the mountain, not that way with all things. Some that go are gone. That was Eyesight by AR Ammons. So what I love about that poem and what I'm suggesting for you is that you think about what is the world, what message is the world giving you right now? The world is saying, I want you to do this. Go ahead and talk to the world back about it. So there's an idea. I think that resilience, really big part of it is about being comfortable figuring out where we are right now. What is this space that we're in? And just getting very curious about it. And poetry is so helpful about helping us see, where am I? What is it like to be in this world right now? What do I smell? What do I hear? What do I see? What do I feel? And here's an example of that. It's called Kerosene Litany. It is by Mahogany Browne, who is the director of the Bowery Poetry Club in New York, very popular. She is a renowned slam poet. And I saw this poem in Tracy K. Smith's daily poetry series called The Slowdown. If you're interested in getting poems daily into your inbox, I think Tracy K. Smith is doing a phenomenal job with that. I'm sure if you just Google The Slowdown Tracy K. Smith, you'll find how to sign up for that and have those poems come to your inbox too. Kerosene Litany. And it begins with a quote from a song by Nina Simone. I wish I knew how it would feel to be free and I could break all the chains holding me. That's Nina Simone. Today, I am a Black woman in America, and I am singing a melody-ridden lullaby. It sounds like the gentrification of a Brooklyn stoop, the rent raised 3 times my wages. The bodega and laundromat burned down on the corner. The people on the corner, each lock and key of their chromosome, a note of inquiry on their tongue. Today, I am a Black woman in a hopeless state. I will apply for financial aid and food stamps with the same mouth I spit poems from. I will ask the angels of a creative God to lessen the blows, and I will beg for forgiveness when I curse the rising sun. Today, I am a Black woman in a body of coal. I am always burning, and no one knows my name. I am a nameless fury. I am a blues scratch from the throat of Ms. Nina. I am always angry. I am always a bumble hive of hello. I love like this, too loudly. My neighbors think I am an unforgiving bitter. Sometimes I think my neighbors are right. Sometimes, most time, I think my neighbors are nosy. Today, I am a cold country, a storm brewing, a heat wave of a woman wearing red pumps to the funeral of my ex-lovers. Today, I am a woman, a brown and black and brew woman, dreaming of a freedom. Today, I am a mother, and my country is burning. And I forget how to flee from such a flamboyant backdraft. I'm too in awe of how beautiful I look on fire. Right? That's Kerosene Litany by Mahogany Browne. It's from her book, Kissing Caskets, that came out in 2017. I love what she does in this poem, in the way that she says, today I am, and she allows you, any of you who've taken workshops with me know that I love this phrase, obey the emerging form, which came from my dear beloved friend Jack Mueller. And it seems to me that Kerosene Litany is following a form, and that form is the simple phrase, today I am, and then you fill in that blank. Who are you right now? Who are you today? Locate yourself. So ideas for different stanzas, different things that you might want to write. You notice that sometimes she says, today I'm a Black woman, and she says, literally where she is in America. She says, emotionally where she is, today I'm a Black woman in a hopeless state. Today I'm a Black woman in a body of coal. So what if you just take a note from her playbook, right? And if you fill in this blank, today I am, what if you were a place? What place are you today? Today I am the field beside the stream. Today I am the playground filled with broken glass. So where are you? Give it a place and fill in that and describe what that is. You could do that, fill in the blank again with a color. Today I am, and fill in what color you are today. Today I am, and fill in a taste. What is the taste that you are today? Today I am, and fill in the song that you are today. What is the song that seems to very best suit you today? Today I am, and you could choose a weather event or some kind of a, like, are you a hurricane or a tsunami or a mudslide or a comet? I guess a comet's not a weather event, but so you see what I'm saying is just instead of being totally literal when you fill in the today I am, you could totally be literal, but there's also the invitation to see where are you right now in terms of all of these other things and how are they working on you. Just for a second about why we write. And I think that everybody has a different answer, of course, to this question, but I'll give you some of my answers to that and hope that that's helpful. One of the main reasons that I write a poem isn't the poem itself. The poem, it's kind of funny how the poem itself isn't actually the point for me. It's in the wrestling, it's in the writing, it's in the being wrestled, so that I can meet the innermost parts of myself in that. This is what Federico Garcia Lorca called the duende. He said that the duende was this kind of demon that was protecting. It was like the gatekeeper for these innermost parts of ourselves. And in order for us to access them, we have to be wrestled by the duende. If you ever notice that when you try to write the truest thing, that it can be really hard, that's what he was talking about. That there is actually a price to be paid to get in to that part, that it isn't actually that easy. And so I love this idea. It's very different from the muse, right? In the kind of the more romance culture, the muse is outside of us, somehow like bestowing creativity on us. But this idea of duende, right, is that it's in us and that there's this deep inner wrestling. That's certainly much more what it feels like to me in terms of what's happening with creative process. And that is the point, that wrestling. And allowing myself to continue to engage more honestly with where I am, with this moment. This is why I feel like poetry is such an important tool for resilience, both reading it and writing it, is that it helps us to meet the world from this more vulnerable, broken open, wrestled down space. And when we can do that, well, I think that benefits us, but I think that also allows us to meet and engage with everybody else from that space too. And that, not to sound too dramatic, but as my friend Erin Abeda says, that's why poetry saves lives, is when we're willing to do that kind of work, it'll save our own life, and it could save the life of someone else who reads your poems also. Well, how's that for a little bit of pressure? Write a poem to save a life. It could be your own. And I think about that, you know, do you need to be talented to do this? No. I just want to emphasize how unimportant I think talent is. I think that I personally have almost none, but what I do have is stubbornness and devotion and a total willingness to show up. And that, I think, friends, is what resilience is, really, is that willingness to stubbornly show up again and again and again, and to fall in love with the world as it is and as it can be. Those moments, then, I think, when we are being wrestled by that duende, Lorca called it a miracle. And I think it is. It is. If you've ever had that whole body feeling of resonance with a poem that you're writing, as you write it and as you serve the poem, that's how I like to talk about it, to let the poem know more than you do. In that moment, oh my goodness, the way there's that sweet buzz of recognition and thrill in what's happening and meeting the mystery. Yeah, that feels like a miracle. It sure does. So about this time, you know, I think a lot of us have been feeling like we've been losing things, losing our sense of security, losing our jobs, losing our loved ones. There's been remarkable amounts of loss, and so I thought we could do a poem that helps us meet some of that loss. This poem is by James Cruz, and he's one of my very favorite poets who's writing in America right now. And, well, this is called Losing Heart. It's not like misplacing the car keys or forgetting your mother's address. You know it's impossible to lose track of the heart working so hard in the chest, resting only for the slimmest of instants between beats, yet you wake some days patting empty pockets, digging through every drawer in the house, searching under the bed and couch. In the space of a night, the hope that burned bright as it flowed like a drug through your veins can drain through the body, leaving you bereft in bed and getting up only to bathe yourself in the sickly light of the fridge, the dim glow of screens. Yet you can trust that the heart never goes far, never abandons you for longer than you can handle. You might be driving to work one stormy morning, scowling at every car that passes by, when it happens again. That sudden leap in the chest when you see the rain-slick blacktop shining blue in places where it reflects the sky, and you are anchored again in that faithful rhythm by which you love the world. That was Losing Heart by James Cruz. He lives in Vermont with his husband and has a fabulous new book of poems called Bluebird. He also is the editor of Healing the Divide, really remarkable anthology of poems about kindness and connection. I mean, one of the reasons that I chose this poem is because I'm guessing that a lot of us had this feeling that he talks about, how almost overnight you may have gone from this feeling of hope, everything's going great, and then all of a sudden that hope flows out of our bodies, leaving us bereft, wondering, oh my goodness, what happened? And he says in here, you can trust it's going to show up. And then again, it's almost like in that poem that we did very first from Jane Hirshfield, where she talked about how so few grains of happiness measured against all the dark still managed to tip the scales. And he has this really sweet example of how you could be in your car scowling at all the cars that pass. Oh, I certainly know that feeling myself. And all of a sudden he says, the leap in your chest when there's this moment of beauty. In this case, he says, you see the rain-slick blacktop shining blue in places where it reflects the sky. And just that little moment of beauty sets us off, right? And it balances, it shows up that the heart hasn't disappeared, right? You're like, oh yeah, there you are, heart. You're still there. You're still there. So I thought, what if you wrote a poem about what it feels like you've lost? What have you lost? You could make even just a list of things. Have you lost security? Have you lost your confidence? Have you lost love or certainty? And you could write about that loss. And then notice what it is that anchors you. That's one of this beautiful line at the end of his poem. He says, you are anchored again in that faithful rhythm by which you love the world. What are the small things that anchor you despite loss? Is it the bright citrus taste of orange juice? Is it picking raspberries? Is it watching the blue heron fly? Is it the smile of somebody you haven't met and you see them through a window without a mask on and you're like, oh my goodness, a real smile. So the idea then would be to, and I had thought that maybe we would do this together right now, and because of my silly internet, we aren't going to do it together right now, but you could certainly do this on your own. Make a poem that starts with a list of things that you feel as if you have lost. And then counteract that list by making a list of the things despite that loss, not to take away from it, no, but to at the same time acknowledge that there are all these little anchors, all these little beautifulnesses that continue to have a rhythm through our lives, and that the poem, and that you and I, all of us, are also able to contain both of these at the same time. At the same time, to hold loss and beauty. A couple more. Of me being, uninternetable. I'm going to go just a few minutes over. I hope y'all don't mind. If you need to get off, of course, I'll understand. So let's do this, take a peek at some ideas for how do we begin to see what is possible. And I think when we are in that place of loss and fear, it can be very hard to believe that, to get out of that and also have one foot in the realm of what is possible. And I love this poem by Naomi Shihab, who is a Palestinian American poet. She lives in San Antonio, Texas. One of my very favorite of all poets. And this is Fresh. And it comes from her book, You and Yours, which came out in 2005. Fresh. To move cleanly, needing to be nowhere else, wanting nothing from any store, to lift something you already had and set it down in a new place. Awakened eye, seeing freshly. What does that do to the old blood moving through its channels? That's Fresh by Naomi Shihab. Such a sweet little invitation, isn't it? I mean, just go pick something up and move it somewhere else. And now all of a sudden you see it anew, and I think most of us probably have in our houses things that have been there a long time that we don't even see anymore. You You walk by it all the time. Heck, even I've written about this before, the gorgeous, enormous ponderosa at the top of my drive. How many times do I drive past that amazing tree without seeing it? Over and over and over again. Well, I can't pick up that ponderosa and move it, of course. But, if there's a vase or a picture or in anything that you have in your home, put it somewhere else so that you can see it new again. So I do think that this is a very practical exercise to do in reality. And I also think that poems help us to do that with almost any object at all. And I mean, really any object at all. Like you could go to your kitchen drawer right now and pull out any object, a spatula, a knife, a measuring spoon, anything. And this is one of my favorite exercises. I do this with myself all the time. I just love to play with this. And this is what you do. You find that object, any object in the house, stapler, pen, a hair tie, and you make a list of its properties. What does it look like? What does it smell like? How does it move? What what color is it? Does it smell like anything? It doesn't, just by the way. And then make a list of like 8 things. And then make a list, second list of its uses. How do you use this object that you've picked up? And write as much as you can about that. You're just writing a list still. And then, this is where the little leap comes in. You ask that object, what do you have to teach me? And you pay attention to what it has to say. This has been one of my favorite ways to write poems for years and years and years. And I can promise you, I promise that anything you give your attention to is going to open up for you and be fresh, as Naomi says. So, 2 more quick things. Praise song. This is another one by James Cruz. And when the world refuses. Well, let me say first why I chose this poem. If you feel a little pummeled right now by the world, and I think that many of us do, it's easy to also be down on the self and to feel like like the world's beating you up and maybe you even deserve being beat up. Or at the very least, it's hard to feel like I've got this. And I think that's part of what he's talking about in this poem. Again, by James Cruz, this is Praise Song. And when the world refuses, you must sing your own praises. Must let that music rise up from the deepest place in you and pour out its shameless hymn. Listen to water as it seeps between gaps and rocks, how the Rottweiler next door looses string of barks and snarls, warning anyone who passes to think twice before entering his yard. Hear the hum of the fridge chilling the milk, the butter, the sweating pitcher of lemonade, how everything sings of itself. Even the coffee maker flipped on with a careless touch this morning, puffing and croaking its own wisdom, like the chorus of peepers who have come again to the creek this spring, who spend all day and night praising the mud they slip deeper into, singing of the warmth that fills them. This poem thrills me because it's almost entirely audible, and I do think that there's an invitation here to just sit and listen. Just listen to the world as it sings its own praises. But then the other invitation, and what I hope you'll take me up on this, because this is maybe the hardest, the hardest of all the prompts that I'm going to give you, is to write your own praise song. Write your own shameless hymn. Hard to do, but I want to give you one of the very best by Maya Angelou, who is a poet and civil rights activist. She worked tirelessly for Black rights. She died in 2014. She also was quite a feminist, and I love this poem, Still I Rise, by Maya Angelou. think about it as I'm reading this, about what it took for her to write her own shameless hymn. Just, you may write me down in history with your bitter, twisted lies. You may trod me in the very dirt, but still, like dust, I rise. Does my sassiness upset you? Why are you beset with gloom? 'Cause I walk like I've got oil wells pumping in my living room? Just like moons and like suns, with the certainty of tides, just like hope springing high, still I'll rise. Did you want to see me broken? Bowed head and lowered eyes, shoulders falling down like teardrops, weakened by my soulful cries. Does my haughtiness offend you? Don't you take it awful hard, 'cause I laugh like I got gold mines digging in my own backyard. You may shoot me with your words. You may cut me with your eyes. You may kill me with your hatefulness, but still, like air, I'll rise. Does my sexiness upset you? Does it come as a surprise that I dance like I've got diamonds at the meeting of my thighs? Out of the huts of history's shame, I rise. Up from a past that's rooted in pain, I rise. I'm a black ocean leaping and wide, welling and swelling. I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise into a daybreak that's wondrously clear. I rise, bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise. I rise. I rise. It's from her book, And Still I Rise, book of poems that came out back in 1978. Such a powerful, shameless hymn of her own power, of her own potential. And so I'm challenging you to see if it's possible for you to write your own shameless hymn as you root yourself in resilience, as you find the ways to meet the world and find your strength, your power, your resilience, your courage, your vulnerability, your own beauty, and bring them all into the page. So to close, I thought I'd share just one. If you can't feel it, if you're unable to, write your own praise hymn right now, and I don't blame you if you can't. You could also choose to write about how you want things to show up, just that you see the invitation, even if you're not able to meet that invitation yet, just knowing that you're able to see it. And that's what I was able to do in this poem, and I'll just close with this one. And then I'll stick around if you want to have just a few questions. I'm happy to chat with you for a little bit. And if you need to hop off, of course, I understand that, because, I mean, we're supposed to be done. But here we are. This is big. This is perhaps the year to learn to be big. Spruce tree, big. Cliffside, big. Big as mesa, as mountain lake, big as in cosmos, as in love. Being small isn't serving me. Trying to fit into someone else's rooms, someone else's rules, someone else's shoes, my own name. Let this be the year to escape all those little rules with their little shoulds, all those little cages with their little locks. It's time to make of myself a key, time to lean into immensity. It's time to supersize communion. It's time to grow beyond the self, to open, to unwall, to do as the universe does, accelerating as it expands, not racing towards something else, but changing the scale of space itself. Yes, this is the year to be big. I think about that bigness. I think about how that is what poetry has to offer us, is that kind of spaciousness in which we can hold struggle and potential at the same time, in which fear and beauty can go hand in hand, just like they do in real life. And I feel like the poem is a flexible enough vessel that allows us to do that. So thank you so much, friends, for joining. I really appreciate you being here. And if you have some questions, if you have anything you want to just bring up in the chat bar, I wrote the poem Big. That was my poem. Hi, Penny Hackett Evans. I just saw your chat question. That was mine, and it's in my most recent book, Hush, which just came out from Middle Creek Press about a month ago. I just see a note also from Penny. Sorry, I shuffled my papers and created a bunch of static on there. I wish I'd seen that note sooner. Anybody else have any questions or any comments you want to make about writing poems, about these poems that we've...
Okay, we may have lost her, but thank you all so very much for being here today and for sticking with the tech issues. I will go ahead and review everything that's happening in chat and let Rosemerry know any questions that you might have. Thank you all so much for being here. We appreciate it. Oh, she's back. Hooray, yay.
Till the end again. Oh my goodness. Carrie, thanks for being the hostess with the most patience.
Oh my goodness. We're just so glad to have you. We're just so thrilled that you've given your time for us tonight. So thank you.
Thanks,
and
friend.
That you're just such a shining example of how to just keep going with it when life gives you, the not ideal circumstances.
Oh my goodness. Thanks for the practice, world.
The world is showing up for us like that right
now. Thank you so much. And Carrie, I'll look forward to talking to you again. And did you let everybody know that we have other programs that we're doing?
Yes, we have a few new programs that are coming out. I'm going to be sending some official communication as it relates to all of that after this meeting. Probably not tonight. My daughter turns 10 tomorrow, so I have some birthday things to attend to, but I'll be sending them out tomorrow. We have a workshop with Rosemerry where she is going to be doing an intensive 2 hours 5 weeks with 12 people. It's limited to 12 people because we want it to be intimate and we want everybody to have access to Rosemerry in that manner. And then on, I believe, August 10th, we have an event with James Cruz and Rosemerry. And I'm so excited about that. One of my favorite poems is the one that you read by James Cruz, the where you saw the sky in the oil. And so that's coming up as well. And you guys, if you would love, we'd love it if you joined our community. You can find all of our classes at SHYFT@milehigh.org. And you can also find us on Facebook and on Instagram. We'd love for you to join us. So, and again, thank you, Rosemerry. You're the best.
Thanks, Carrie. Thanks, friends.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thank you.